I'm seeing all the people here. Amazing. Okay, let's jump in. So again, hi everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Santiago Cordoba, Santi. I'm one of the founders and CRO at Adsmood. We are a creative agency focused on mobile games, always on the look for top performers. As I said before, first time being a moderator, very excited about it. So today's panel is halfway through 2026, new user acquisition strategies driving game growth. So basically what we're going to do is spend the next hour talking about what's actually working in user acquisition right now, and not the theory, but the actual practice. A little bit of context. So I think that if there is one word that describes what's happening in UA in 2026 in this year, is fragmentation, right? On one side, we have been seeing CPIs rising up year over year since 2023, 2024, and so on. The old playbook of just pouring investment into Google and Meta doesn't scale the way they used to. And at the same time, we're seeing new things working. AI-assisted creative at volume, new rewarded and alternative channels, web to app, for example, even creator-driven distribution and engagement built directly into the growth loop. So that's exactly what we're going to discuss here today. We have a fantastic group of experts to help us make sense of it. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves. That's the first thing that we're going to do in a moment. And then I'm going to do a question for each of these amazing people. And then we are going to close with one piece of advice from each one of them and myself as well. Of course, feel free to include all your questions into the chat. At the end of the call, we're going to review them and address them happily. So let's start with the introductions. Diana, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Hi everyone, my name is Diana and I oversee growth at Jest. A couple of words about the company and myself. Jest is first marketplace for messaging apps. We believe that the next generation of apps will be texted, not downloaded. And Jest turns messaging into a platform for distribution and retention for developers. As for my background, I have over 10 years of experience in mobile marketing with a lot of focus on user acquisition, managing multi-million-dollar monthly budgets, building teams from scratch. And I really appreciate the opportunity to join this panel, talk to these other awesome experts in the industry, and just exchange thoughts on where things are headed in 2026.
Awesome. That's great. Jose, do you want to go then?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Santi. Like you, this is also my first time joining a webinar, so I'm very excited to join all this panel, and hopefully the people that are watching us and that maybe watch us later will take some nice conclusions from what we are about to talk about. So I'm José. I'm from Portugal. I live in Lisbon, and I'm an account manager at Gamelight. Gamelight is a Germany company based in Hamburg, and it's one of the largest rewarded user acquisition channels, both in terms of volume and in terms of the rankings and recognition from all the major MMPs, basically. As a rewarded channel, Gamelight is scaling constantly. And we basically give rewards for people for completing certain tasks. It's one of the hot topics in UA right now, and I'm very much looking forward to discuss a little bit of the trends that I'm seeing happening nowadays. Quickly about myself. Sorry, just a quick introduction. Right now I am an account manager, so I manage a portfolio of a lot of the biggest game developers in the industry. I think I must contact all of them and talk with all of them. But I also have experience in BD, and previously I was an account manager in a network as well. So I have experience doing UA for fintech, social apps, but game is my main aspect.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you, Jose, for the intro. David, do you wanna go next?
Yeah, hey everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm David, or David, how we say here in Spain. I'm from the south of Spain, and I've been working in the app industry for the last 7 years as independent growth consultant. More than 140 apps and games on my back already, but always learning along the way. Gaming was my first love in the industry, is where I started. So being in a webinar about this topic is really exciting. So yeah, thank you for having me here.
Sounds awesome. And lastly, we have someone local from SocialPeta, Pankaj. Do you wanna do your intro?
Hi, thank you, Santiago, and thank you everyone who has joined the call. I've been a part of SocialPeta team for almost last 4 years, and SocialPeta is an ad intelligence platform. We have been existing for more than 10 years now. We started off our business collecting insights for the gaming, so it's in our route. Uh, we have seen a lot of trends changing because in UA, what is most exciting part, apart from a challenge, that things have been keep on changing. I mean, something that really works well, I mean, maybe for someone else, or maybe for you, I mean, in the past may not work again. So this trends lets us learn a lot of new things, constant learning, and I think this is the exciting part of our work. I'm happy to learn a lot of things from you guys as well. So as we speak more, maybe we will have more insights for each other. Thank you.
Definitely awesome. Thank you very much, guys, for all the introductions. So let's dive in. So we have the first question that is going to be for everyone. And so basically, we've seen user acquisition become fragmented in 2026 during this year, right? So what with new channels, formats, and technologies reshaping how games grow, what's one UA shift or strategy, I'm sorry, that you believe is changing how games grow today? Shall I start with maybe David? Do you want to take it?
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, there is like a major shift, which is AI, right? Like AI has opened a new world for UA managers in general, with both creative strategy and channel diversification as the main levers to unlock a growth level that 5 years ago was impossible to achieve by one single person, but now it's totally possible. Like our efficiency, our productivity has increased thanks to AI. And talking about the first level, which is creative strategy, I mean, you can test, execute, and analyze an insane amount of data and creatives much faster than before. And when you gain that uplift in the speed, you can unlock a competitive advantage in an industry that gets more crowded and crowded every day. Because at the same time, AI is also increasing the offer of apps and games. So it's like a balance where the fastest right now is gaining that advantage, because everyone is looking for that creative, which is like a winning creative and gives you a CPA or a CAC affordable and scalable at the same time. And then on the other side, we have creative diversification and channel diversification. Because of the higher offer in the industry, we are seeing how the classical ad networks like Google Ads, Meta, TikTok, Apple, we are seeing increasing CPMs month over month, simply because there are more competitors bidding on the same audiences, right?
Yes.
So something that I'm seeing across all the apps that I've been managing during the last 15 months, let's say, is these companies are leaning into more alternative channels like affiliate marketing, incentivized partners, also more DSPs. Like I see companies diversifying the traffic just to get that scenario where the CPA and the budgets are more distributed, let's say. So these two levers are, in my opinion, the main shifts that I've seen during the last
Makes
1.5
absolute sense. Yeah, when you were talking about creative, I mean, I have to jump in, right? I have a creative agency. I see this on a daily basis with all the different clients that we have. And it's really interesting and surprising to see that even though AI, everyone is talking about AI and everyone is trying to adopt AI the best possible way, there is a huge gap and there are many nuances between all the different clients that we see, right? You have the client that is like, hey, I know exactly what I want. You just go out there and execute for me, right? And maybe you have to create 5, 10 videos and that's it. And then you have in the other extreme, you have a client that is like, hey, I have no idea what a creative strategy is about. I have to create new concepts out of scratch. I have no user acquisition experience. I have no idea what my budget could be. And it's like, okay, we have to create everything from zero, right? So in the middle of the AI, craziness and how to adopt that, it's really interesting. And I think that addressing the question and jumping in, the challenge that these companies have is not about to create 100, 200, 500 ads a month, because execution has been kind of solved. I wouldn't say 100% because it depends a lot on the quality and what you want to achieve and everything. But I think they have a huge challenge when it comes to strategy and where to focus, right? So that's going to be super interesting to see how not only the clients but partners like us can help solving I think a very big problem nowadays. In addition to that, Jose, anything that you would like to add on your side, on your experience about this particular question?
Yeah, of course. For me, working in a rewarded channel, I don't have as much experience with AI and the creative side, but I do have experience with AI on the performance side, okay, of analyzing and finding users. And I think my answer is going to dive a little bit in that. So I'm going to say some stuff that David already said and you said as well, Santi, because it's a fact. Like, we are seeing, in fact, a gigantic number of new channels and formats showing up, right? To be honest, in my opinion, that is great overall. I'm very in favor of diversification and having options. We are finding great fits for every single user, right? Because since we have so many ways of doing UA, we are going to find a way that we are going to find a happy user. And so yeah, having more formats, it's making it more likely for the users to engage positively with a specific app. But at the same time, I think there is a risk of having so many options, which is the risk of having user burnout with overall of ads and everything like that is showing and popping up in our faces. For me, coming from Rewarded, and I am biased because I do come from Rewarded and pretty much all my career has been in this industry, but I do believe that Rewarded UA is positioning itself at the pole position to be a strategic cornerstone for all developers and everyone that is doing UA and managing apps. I think so far in this year, so far in 2026, we've seen Rewarded UA continuing to grow, and we've also seen pretty big acquisitions happening within the industry. So I think we are also seeing a market consolidation, and I think this is an overall trend of the UA industry at all, like big companies buying companies, adding other companies to their portfolio, etc. So yeah, I think the market consolidation just started and is going to keep on growing. I also believe that Rewarded is growing because it is, in my opinion, one of the cleanest exchange of value between users and platform. It's very very simple to understand how the reward platforms work, right? The users go to rewarded platforms, they select a game that they think they will enjoy or an app, and then they get rewards for completing said goal. And I think this is pretty transparent, and it's a nice way of doing UA, and I think will increase during the remaining of the year and so on. Just to finish, at my day-to-day activity, I'm also starting to see a shift regarding the willingness on trusting AI, like we have been talking about. So I do see a willingness to trust AI when doing UA. And as David was saying, I'm also seeing an increase in CPIs, but I think that people are starting to be more acceptant to those CPIs. Traditionally, what I used to see was that developers would want to pull also a bunch of levers, right? For different targeting options. I want only guys, only females, only like from 30 years and so on. And I think that while that would usually work well, it would reduce significantly the scale potential of the UA sources. Everyone is different, right? So we might not fit a specific box. And since everyone is different, just because a user is not from a specific demographic group, it doesn't mean that he or she cannot be an amazing user for that specific app. I think we are finding more and more that we are finding more and more gems in terms of users thanks to AI. I believe Gamelight is well positioned because Gamelight was one of the first companies to really go heavily on AI when it comes to finding users for specific apps.
Of course.
I also believe that due to the competition, we are seeing an increase in CPI, like we have talked. And to be honest, I think it's going to increase a bit more. Because of that, I believe that rewarded channels are going to see a continued growth on CPIs, but that will allow us to increase the retention rate and lifetime value of the user, which in the end is the goal, right? I don't think studios are going to be too much bothered about spending a lot of money if the users are valuable. And I think AI,
I get it.
It's very important for that.
Makes sense. I mean, it's interesting to know more about non-traditional channels, right? User acquisition. I mean, in the old days, 10 years ago, I did user acquisition. It was all about Meta, Google, and maybe talking to some networks. I remember my first campaign doing incentivized traffic and how the game changed, for 10 years. It's very interesting to know that there are very, interesting alternatives for UA. Diana, what's your take on this question?
I'm gonna circle us back to AI. I think that
Please.
today
Of
it's
course.
probably hard to think of a single function that hasn't been reshaped by AI in 2026. And I think that I obviously totally agree on generative AI transforming ad creative space, but I also think that there is another profound shift happening in UA function that I'm observing, which is coming from automation becoming way more accessible and customizable. And I think that we're already seeing a huge boost in productivity and a shift towards smaller, leaner teams where AI is effectively allowing growth managers, UA managers, stay more creative, focus on high-level strategic tasks, and kind of do the problem solving that AI isn't capable of. And just to give you a concrete example, 5 years ago, when I was at Dots, we scaled our creative production towards 100 creatives a month. That was huge back then, and we tested that many on a monthly basis. And one of the bottlenecks that we run into is setting up creative tasks. So we needed an automation tool that we had to hire an external contract engineer that spent several weeks studying Meta API documentation to build a tool that would allow us to automate campaign setup. And funnily enough, 5 years later here at Jest, I recently faced a similar problem. We are running a lot of tests. We are setting up probably several new test campaigns a day, on top of also running creative tests, launching, I think to date, we have over 5,000 of ads in our account.
Wow.
And we quickly ran into a similar problem of needing an automation to replace manual work of just clicking buttons in Meta UI as just Meta alone. And we were able to build our automation this time around in under a day, fully custom to our needs, with just single command line. You push the button, things go live. And I think that it's clearly empowering and boosting our productivity, but I also think that as these tools become available for growth managers, there will be a major shift that will need to happen in our minds, which is transitioning from kind of thinking about doing manual work towards thinking about how do we build autonomous systems? How do we put together frameworks that allow things to run on the background without our involvement, freeing us up for more creative work, strategic thinking. And also, I think that in 2026, effectively, growth managers and UM managers are shifting away from traditional media buying to being almost a little bit of a system architects or engineers who are, if they adopt that mindset, they will become truly powerful because they will both combine that mindset of business understanding and knowing, having that financial knowledge of side of the business, but also being able to build their own tech stack and build those, I call them marketing machines, the things that are effectively necessary nowadays to compete in the red ocean that we are seeing.
Well, that's interesting. You got me thinking about that marketing machines, right? Because it's like everyone can build easily a tailor-made tool for whatever it is that they want to do. So I think that we also have to think one step before that, what is like the big picture of what I'm actually doing here, like testing 5,000 ads. It's insane. Like there's a lot, a huge amount of it. It's like, how do I play with data? How do I see it? How do I take actions on that? And these marketing machines that you mentioned, I'm going to steal that from you. That's like a very interesting concept. It's really good. I think that speedness probably is the number one factor that increases with AI and with this new development of tools. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think that the nice thing about that is that it effectively shifts power a little bit back towards newer developers to coming into the market. Because if you think about it, up until now, there's been a shift more and more towards bigger companies, and entering the market for new developers has been becoming more and more difficult for new games. I think that AI is opening this opportunity once again, because now I think we are inevitably moving towards a single person, like one person teams or just a few people teams being capable of competing with those giant companies again.
Definitely. Thank you, Diana. Pankaj, you left. What is it that you think about this whole discussion?
Sure. I mean, I think it is time to stamp that yes, we all agree that AI is helping like all of us, and it's no more challenge. I mean, not from the data perspective, but from the creative perspective as well, because it lets publishers do multiple iterations like in very short time. I mean, that is only doable using the AI, and the AI generated content along with some maybe UGC. I mean, kind of combination can also work real well. We have seen. I mean, with SocialPeta, I mean, we are managing more than 2 billion creatives at the moment worldwide. So it's a huge data, and we see a trend which is constantly changing for the same category, same publisher, for the same app as well. Previously, people were not doing a lot of campaigns like CPI campaigns for some non-traditional networks, but that shift is really changing. So it's not just about the ad networks alone. I mean, it is more towards the ad creatives as well, because the creatives is this story, like what do you actually want to convey with the audiences, and something that probably works really well for maybe one segment may not work for the other, may rework, may not rework. So I mean, the bigger your basket is, the kind of iteration you have been keep on changing. Don't wait for like so long. Uh, and just see the what elements is actually working. So once you have a bottom line, maybe like something is working, try to make a like 20, 30 or more copies around it with some basic changes in the CTAs, maybe some localization, some
Hmm.
variations, and try to do along with some UGC like performance, so that I mean it will actually give a real sense of the product that you want to send to the audiences, along with the very precise message that what you exactly have. I mean, one suggestion: do not add anything which does not go align with the product that you actually have, because that
Mm.
may uh, give you some audiences at the first end, but maybe like after day one, day seven, you will see maybe a lower CPI is not working. So that can be one of the chance. Uh, the second thing is like a lot of mid-sized gaming companies, those who have actually understood this part, that only a bigger budget is not helping them. Maybe a real iteration, the kind of ad copies they have been testing, which is actually working for them. So this is something that we have recently noticed. uh, and once you have a successful use case, maybe just try to have them work or keep it live for longer period. We have seen people have same kind of ad copies running maybe more than 10 networks in the first week.
Hmm.
Beginning of the next week, they are just continuing with the two of the networks. So because they actually realize this is actually going with the right audiences, helping them retain the new users. So I think this kind of strategy that is actually working. Uh, so this is my take basically on it.
Sounds good. You are talking about, you mentioned creatives and audiences, right? And I do think, and I see this is very normal, at least from my take, that we really forget that. Like, you create variations and different concepts, and maybe you go to a tool like SocialPeta and you see, hey, what are the top performers, and you replicate that to your game. And is it like you don't question yourself? Is the creative is actually targeting the right audience? And many user acquisition specialists probably use a very broad targeting when it comes to segmentation, because that's the recommendation from Google, from Meta, from the other user acquisition channels. So that's that's very important to actually remember that it's marketing 101, right? Like, to target your audience through the creative input. Amazing take. Thank you, Pankaj, for the answer. I'm gonna start doing some individual questions now. Jose, starting with you, if that's okay. Um, as publishers, move beyond traditional acquisition channels and explore more diversified growth paths, new opportunities are emerging across platforms and ecosystems. So beyond traditional user acquisition channels, where are you seeing the most meaningful new sources of scalable growth today, and what do you think makes them work?
Yes, spend all your money in rewarded. No, no, just kidding. But my take is more lean towards rewarded. Okay,
Okay.
um, there are a lot of wonderful channels, but this is the one I feel more comfortable talking about. So, um, I'm a true believer in the concept of rewarded UA. Um, I believe in my view, it's the fairer, more transparent, and better way to do UA currently. Again, I'm biased. um, uh, I believe that the growth in rewarded UA can have a positive impact overall, which in the crazy landscape that we are seeing right now with ads, and like you are watching a video and ads start popping up. So I believe there can be a positive perception on how users see rewards, because it's less intrusive. And I think having that way of displaying games or apps to users is
Mhm.
pretty positive, to be honest. I think right now, I think this is not as much of a case right now, but I remember like 1 or 2 years ago, there was a lot of fake interstitial ads showing a cool game or a great feature, and users would click on that video and they would be taken to the Google Play or App Store, download the game, and then have their their expectations meet like not that gameplay or seeing that the game was actually not exactly how was displayed in that ads, and that led to retention rate, bad reviews, and a bad experience for the user. Although that showed a lot of volume and a lot of organic organic installs due to growing inside the Play stores. But I think that time is past us, because I believe that at the time developers got a lot of fake signals that seemed better than they were. And this relates to the earlier point I was making, with people being more willing for higher CPIs or higher CPMs, because in the end of the day, if you are spending not that much money on getting installs, but the performance is bad, it's better to spend more money but have better performance, right? Which rewarded UA, I think you have a valuable UA source that is a bit more expensive even than traditional UA, for sure. But the rewarded platforms work as a filter for the user, the quality of the user itself, right? Rewarded platforms do UA, so we have to acquire user as well. And the users that we get to our platforms are users that get trained, or that are expecting to see different apps there and to download it. So the users should have higher quality in of itself, right? Because those users are trained or are willing to download and play different games. Besides that, like we were talking before earlier, rewards platform give rewards for completing specific tasks, and this is very helpful for the developers, right? Because this way developers can choose and define the funnel that they want the user to go through. And I believe this can give precious data for development of games and creating new features, right? For example, on Monopoly Go, you have you can have a funnel for asking them to unlock new boards within the game. But now, if you want to create a new feature or a partnership with a brand, or a new like collecting cards mechanism instead of unlocking boards, you can with reward very easily make the user go that way, because you are rewarding them for doing that. So yeah, I think we are seeing that. We are also seeing that on the MMP reports, rewarded UA sources are more and more popping up higher within the rankings, alongside traditional UA sources. And this is a clear sign of growth in adoption. Okay, so I think we have a lot of room to grow, as we have been growing from the past few years. Again, it's true that it's not only rainbows and sunshines. It's true that it's more difficult to get scale with rewarded UA. That's a very noticeable issue that I have every single day. People complaining to have more scale. It's easier to get higher scale on Google or Meta ads. But I think with the emergence of AI, this difference will diminish more and more, and the trend of user adoption to rewarded strategies is also going to increase. So we have AI helping with targeting. We have very big players coming out of, like, popping up into the scene. And I think those two conjugations of factors will increase the volume that rewarded have, because people are more and more wanting to have that little side hustle. So more user joining the wave will also lead to higher scale on our end. I believe there is nothing like the satisfaction people get from playing a game and getting real life rewards. And with the current tech, you are not just playing boring games, right? You are playing games that are a good fit for you. And we know that thanks to AI. So yeah, and I believe the game will feel custom made for you, because also thanks to AI, and I think this is a trend that we are seeing, we can, or game developers can make more custom made funnels for the user. So I might go to a specific part of the game to start with, or I might get a pop-up of a specific bundle ID to make a purchase. and every single one of you can have a different bundle ID, because AI is allowing us to be very precise with the customization we give to every specific users. But yeah,
Okay.
just to finish my point, I think we have been talking about incentivized traffic. I think incentivized traffic is no longer very permanent, to be honest with you. In my opinion, there was a lot of suspicion around incentivized traffic, and I understand why. It seemed very scammy, to be honest, because there was a very closed black box. Like, you didn't know what happened there. You were just sending money. You had like a lot of agencies cutting margins. It was a bit crazy, and I think we are a long path from there. I think the incentivized traffic gave place to rewarded platforms, and the reward ecosystem we are now seeing is growing a lot, is growing way higher than incentivized ever could and ever had the potential to grow. And I believe that rewarded UA is going to get better and better. And the trend we are seeing on the MMPs, it's only showing that the adoption is growing, and it's a very important scalable source nowadays. Hopefully, we are going to see, just to finish, even higher adoption.
Of course.
And hopefully, like, the mainstream will start looking at rewarded as like a loyalty program app. So you go there, you can even add those rewarded channels into your own app to drive retention rate, give vouchers to your user base, and a lot of creative things that we are going to see that we are not even seeing right now.
I think that it's very interesting to listen to you. Very full answer, basically, because this is kind of the core of the webinar that we have today. We are talking about how can you make UA besides traditional channels. So thank you very much for addressing that. I'm gonna go with Diana now. So again, we're talking about this, right? Like how to make user acquisition without going directly to the traditional channels. And well, you work in Jest, right? Like it's around messaging as a channel. So how do you think publishers are evolving beyond acquisition to drive growth through in-game communications and real-time engagement? And what specific approaches do you think are actually improving retention, reactivation, and even LTV during this year?
Yeah, so I think that in 2026, obviously, acquisition alone is clearly not enough. And I would take it even like one step further and say that it's not just UA that's getting harder, it's also a lot of our traditional retention tools are also becoming way less effective. I think that obviously one of the biggest shifts that we are seeing over the last few years in games is that web is becoming more and more of a thing. We see it in apps, we are seeing more web stores, we are seeing web onboarding funnels, for the most part adopted in apps, but also some hybrid web mobile experiences. And I don't think this is a new idea anymore. There are industry experts talking about it. I think Matej Lančarič has been talking a lot about how things are trended in that direction and how this is a big advantage for apps compared to games. And even major players like AppsFlyer are rolling out web support. So it's there. But also, what do we know about web? One of the biggest issues of web as a platform has been retention. And interestingly, I do think that over the last years, we've been seeing a similar trend of a mobile shifting towards a similar problem, where we can see that retention nowadays is nowhere where retention used to be for mobile games, when you go out on the market. And if you look at what Apple and Google are doing to push notifications, you realize that there are actually some answers there. We are used to think that push notifications is a pretty straightforward, direct way to communicate to our customers, but in reality, there's been a lot of shifts happening there. There was just recently a new article posted, I think it's called What Apple and Google Are Doing to Your Push Notifications. I highly recommend to anyone working in games, because it gives you a very both technical and detailed explanation of what's going on with push notifications, how they're evolving, the most recent change being AI summaries. I just recently thought about how AI summaries put you further away from the customer, because when you send a notification, the customer doesn't see it. They see that summary that can even totally have a distorted meaning there. And now the obvious question becomes, with all these trends and changes that we are seeing, if traditional retention loops are getting weaker and UA is not enough, what replaces them, or where are things headed? And the thing that is kind of at the core foundation of Jest is that we believe that messaging is one of the stickiest surfaces on mobile nowadays. There are studies showing that 90 to 95% of messages are opened within just 3 minutes. And you probably have some various numbers like that about notifications, and you can imagine how different, how big the gap there is. And now that Apple has finally embraced RCS, it opened a massive opportunity to become like fully independent and to see fully independent messaging apps and rich gaming experiences in user inbox. Because now, instead of like leveraging SMS and MMS, you can do it via RCS. And just to be clear, the solution isn't to just spam user with notification and hope that they will come back. We actually do see some developers try that sometimes, and they fail instantly. I think that messaging is still a pretty complex piece to handle. And if I were to share how we make it work on our end, I would probably break it down into 3 components. One of them is obviously a compliance layer. You have to adhere to all kinds of carrier rules, regulations, RCS constraints, and that's where, for developers on Jest, we take care of all of this. It's the core of our company. We have a dedicated messaging team that handles the entire regulatory technology side, and we make the process for developers as simple as scheduling regular notification. The second component is onboarding users and making smooth experience of being onboarded into those messaging apps. And we spend a lot of time experimenting with what we call onboardings. Those are essentially playable, interactive experiences on web that introduce users to the platform, the games, apps on our platform, and get them to sign up via messaging, but also establishes that messaging app relationship. And we do a lot of those tests. That's kind of one of the big pillars for us. And lastly, notifications. That's about kind of finding the right moment, when to bring user back, what message works the best for each user, personalizing those. And I think that there is also a really exciting shift or opportunity in the space where the line between where messaging ends and the game or an app begins is starting to blur, because instead of the notification simply telling you, hey, go back to a web or an app to interact with something, we can actually now bring parts of core experience into the messaging. And that's something that we are also pretty excited about. But I think that might be looking a little more into the future. The data that we are seeing today is pretty impressive and confident. And what we are seeing is that the publishers on our platform who are leveraging those tools, leveraging those onboardings, retention tools for retention metrics, notifications, we are seeing some of the top of the market metrics that normally you would see in the articles about the top 10 games. Like, I recently read one of those articles, and you see the metrics, and it's pretty freaking impressive to see that we can make that be a possibility for a wider range of games.
That's impressive. Personally, I didn't know about that. So thank you very much for the input, Diana. Wow, this is really cool webinar. I'm gonna go to David. Oh, David, from Argentina, so I can say David. So you have an amazing experience, right? We've known each other for quite some time now, and you manage growth across more than 100 apps and games. So you've seen user acquisition change a lot, not only in channels, but also now how AI is reshaping the ecosystem. So what is your approach to user acquisition evolving in recent years under these changes? And what are the most important new UA strategies that you are actually actively using today that were not part of your particular core playbook a few years ago?
Well, I still miss the good old days without a scan and iOS
Me too.
running value optimization at a scale. I still remember these days, and ASO working with no S Pen at all. Those were great days to be in the industry. Unfortunately, they are gone, right?
Yeah.
For me, this answer is pretty straightforward and clear. The biggest change in my playbook, and over the last 15 months, I've been working with more than 10 games easily. It's been Web 12 campaigns, mostly in iOS, of course. There are like several reasons for preferring these campaigns rather than the classic app campaigns, right? The first one is that you entirely bypass a scan. I know that even if you go with app campaigns nowadays, you don't have to use a scan. But
Uh-huh.
even comparing probabilistic attribution on app campaigns versus web to app campaigns, I do see more consistent and reliable data using web campaigns. And when I say web campaigns, I don't
Mhm.
include like a landing page or a web onboarding or something like that. It's just a web campaign that redirects the users towards the store. And that is my most preferred option nowadays. As I said, you bypass a scan, you get richer signals, more consistent, more reliable. You have a better creative distribution. This is something that I see across different apps and games. Like the span across your creatives is more distributed. So you don't have that typical pattern of Meta absorbing 99% of the spend into one creative or two maximum. And besides that, and the most important advantage for me is that it allows you to open new channels and new inventories that are not available for app campaigns. For example, on Google Ads, with Web to App, you can run a search campaign for iOS based on keywords that are really relevant for your game. You can also run a demand gen campaign running
Yeah.
specifically only in YouTube. That is not available with app campaigns because app campaigns in Google Ads, for example, are automated. You don't have the control over the placement. And when you switch, you start to have the opportunity to diversify your budget and reduce the risk of relying on one single campaign and one single type of campaign, which in this case can be either ROAS or CPA campaigns,
Mhm.
right? So this is for me, for sure, the biggest advantage.
Well,
And then the biggest shift, sorry, and then the other vertical would be creative strategy that I already mentioned before.
mhm.
It is drastically changing like how I approach the structure and the creative testing across my clients now with AI compared to 5 years ago. Like the speed of rotation and execution and iteration is easily 20 times higher. Like if I see a creative working well, I have the insights about demographics, placements, hook rate, hold rate in the same day, and I have the team producing 100 iterations on on the following day. That speed
Well,
wasn't um, existing before, right? So those
mhm.
two are for sure the main changes in my playbook. But now talking about creatives, and since you are a founder of a creative agency, just yeah, I wanted to ask, how do you see the relationship between creative strategy and UA evolving this year, especially when it comes to driving measurable performance rather than just the engagement of the creative?
Well, so I think that I keep thinking about Web to App. I'm gonna send you an email after that because that's top notch. Talking about creative and performance. I think that what I'm seeing nowadays is that, and this is a challenge that we have internally as a company, as a creative company, it's very hard for us to separate these two worlds, right? Creative and performance. Like what we see is that we're being pushed to turn ourselves into a growth agency. And this is basically because, let's picture this, right? I have a client, they ask me for, let's say, 10 video ads a month, fresh concepts, I do them. And what if I don't receive data? What if I don't receive how they are working? How can I create the variations? How can I be creative when I don't know what's happening on the performance side of things? So I do remember the good old days, right? They were good old days, but at the same time, I think that when you think of the people that they are actually executing the campaigns and the strategies behind that, now you have like more complete roles in the sense that a UA specialist now can know about creatives because there are more tools out there that can educate them towards that. So I would say overall that I would answer the questions by that question specifically by saying that probably in the next 2, 3, 4 years, we are going to see more complete agencies, roles, companies, more one-stop shops or all-in-one integrated solutions. That's kind of the way that I think about it. And we haven't talked about playables yet, because that's one of the major, I wouldn't say shifts, but everyone is talking about playable ads and AI involving to playable ads. Of course, there are a lot of things that haven't been broken down yet. For example, what about the quality of the playable ads that are made with AI? What about the iterations of the playable ad? What about the control? What if I want to change just one minor detail in that playable? Is AI able to do that? So that's kind of the questions that I have for myself. But I do see that the industry is focusing a lot more on playables rather than videos nowadays. Now I come one more question, and it's to Pankaj, our SocialPeta person here. So, you sit on top of one of the largest creative and intelligent data sets in the industry. So across the market, we're seeing new creative formats, channel mixes, and UA behaviors emerging that may signal structural changes in performance. So from your point of view, what new UA patterns or creative strategies are emerging in 2026 that signal real performance improvement, not only trends? And I think that this relates a lot to your introduction where you were talking, on the first question that I made you, when you were talking about all this creative data that you have 2 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm really all ears here. What's your take on this?
Thanks, and I totally agree to my fellow speakers, and you just mentioned, like for example, playable ads. Maybe I would also add what I have to say about the playables. But as far as the overall strategy is concerned, I think the it is more towards the creative first media buying that is becoming a bottom line for major players. When we talk about the available options that we have. Same time, we should also consider that we have very good competition. I mean, you beat it is for the app level, it is on the category level, it is on the genre. I mean, you name any game and you will see like a lot of publishers are working in the same field. So I mean, you are in a crowd and you have to do something so that I mean your ads, your games will be seen more. So yes, so playable is, let's talk about the playables first. Maybe I mean, playable is the acceptance from the user. I mean, if you give them the first-hand experience before they download, I mean, there are chances that they're gonna retain as long as it resonates what you actually have within the gameplay. So it is the first time acceptance they have already experienced. They have that fatigue to, I mean, go a little further, and that's how they land to the app store and they downloaded the app. So that is one thing. So playable or any engaging content, which is, I think, one of the blessing that one app publishers can have. Apart
Mhm.
from it, the number of iteration to different segments, to different people, different audiences is another game. Maybe something I really love to play in one category may not work into some other category. For example, playbooks work really well in maybe a puzzle category, wherein I mean you have given them probably a 20 seconds time to maybe find a hidden object, for example, and the time actually you uh, let them go to the CTA page decides a lot. So kind of iterations that you make on those ad copies, uh, the way you can give the actual message of your game is actually the vital thing. Uh, and the first 2 3 seconds on any ad creative, be it is HTML, it is video, it is carousel, it is an image, like not for the image, of course. So I mean, this is the decider point, because you will
Mhm.
see a lot of creatives having almost similar kind of elements, but maybe a kind of a music which is going really well with the gameplay, or maybe a user generated content which is showing very interesting point for a player. I think that is working well. So once you have all that things benchmarked, maybe then you have to think about the platforms as well, because some sort of creative or formats may work for maybe TikTok, or may not work for the Meta or Google. So then you have to identify that what is working well for which kind of audiences. For example, like we are here in India, and TikTok is not working here, but there are a lot of creatives we still inspire from TikTok, and we make some kind of iteration and we use in some other ad networks. So this kind of study, I mean, once you have for a combination for your first party as well as the third party data, I mean, that gonna make really big help for you to have an advantage in the crowded market. Yeah,
Got
that's
it. Thank you for the input. We are almost on time, but
yeah.
I want to make a quick question to each one of you. Pankaj, you can start with this one. So the final question is, if you had to give one practical piece of advice to publishers trying new UA strategies in 2026, what would it be?
Uh, I'll be like very quick on it. Don't just go for any specific CTA for your campaigns. Don't go for just for the like higher clicks or low CPIs. I mean, just try to create something that can have the retention along with the much stronger UA. I mean, that's how you're gonna have money in the longer run. Yeah.
Diana, what's your take on that?
I think that in the world of AI being so popular nowadays, I think that I have a kind of two-part advice. On the one hand, absolutely, you should be using AI to build things, to build automation, to do leverage generative AI for creatives and all of that. But I think there is a bit of a reality check side of things where it's important to remember that AI is still just a guessing machine. It's not a powerful, logical, thinking anything. At its core, it's purely probabilistic, not logical, and you might give it the same task 10 times or 100 times, and it might do it perfectly those times, but then on 101st, it might still fail. And because of that, I think it's important to remember that we cannot delegate core decision making or anything critical like budget guardrails or anything like that to AI. And the best way nowadays to use it is generative AI is one of the options, but also leveraging AI to build deterministic tools that will unlock and empower you and your team.
Got it. David, your answer on that?
It is straightforward. Just give a shot to Web2App campaigns.
I
uh,
agree with
yeah, I
that.
mean, it's about that and creative strategy for me. It's where I found the biggest success the last 6 to 8 months. If you are capable of building like a system to iterate your winning creatives and to analyze them based on real performance, not engagement, and you are capable of going deep into the insights about the placements, the demographics, like what's your user persona, your ICP, and you are able to build a creative for that, you will be likely finding more success than if you just keep uploading generic videos without like doing like a study or research about the variables of each creative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, these two for sure.
Cool. Last but not least, Jose, what do you think about it?
Yeah, for me is don't be afraid to try something new, to try different channels, but be open to the suggestions you get from your account manager or your teammate in the end of the day on the other company. I think us being a non-traditional UA source, we oftentimes see people trying to take what they see working on Meta and Google and replicate it with other sources and not taking like our advices to their fullest. And I think that resistance can lead to not optimal results. I bet you see that with creative agencies sometimes as well, like clients trying to give their input, and then the quality is not as good as it could be, and they go and complain to you. And that's okay because it's a team effort. Everyone wants to input. But my advice would be, if you decided to work with that person, is because you are interested in what they do, and if you are, trust what they are telling you.
Okay, that's good. Lina, so we have 3 questions in the Q&A. I would love to address them. Is it okay if we take 5 more minutes to answer them, or we have to finish now? I don't know if you are there, but I mean, I would take that as a yes, as an answer, right? And let's jump into the questions. So the first question is from Amy, and she goes like, with AI, generative creative becoming more common in UA, how do you balance the speed and scale with maintaining creative quality and originality? Anyone wants to answer that? If not, I can jump in. Because I mean, I have a creative agency, right? I should be able to answer that. So the short answer is really complicated. It is. It is. And it's more complicated when you think that AI is going to solve everything super quickly when it comes to creative execution, which it does. It really does. If you don't really care or consider what is the content that you are generating, right? If you really are thinking through the concepts and the strategy and what is it that you're going to communicate, then AI will help you balancing that, but it's still very hard, right? I have clients that they just want 100% AI generated content, and it takes almost 5 to 7 days to grab the final video because there is feedback, there's back and forth, and by the way, crafting a concept and changing it in the middle of it with AI is really, really complicated. So I would say that, and actually the next question is feasible is, do you think AI is making our creatives more effective or just more similar? Well, if anyone wants to answer that, because that's a very data-driven question, right? I think it depends a lot, but I don't know if anyone wants to answer that.
Hi, Santiago. Just would like to give my take on it.
Of course.
So, as long as when we say it's creative, I mean it is not very. I think it's very subjective. I mean any creative work is very subjective, and
Mhm.
AI is not to replace our thought process. I mean it is just to give us a speed towards what we actually want to achieve. For example, I have one idea and I need different iterations towards it. I mean, maybe I can get this idea onto my AI platform and get the number of available options, and the decision making would be on me. So once I have everything, I mean, because if I have to do something manually, I mean, it'll take maybe a couple of hours or maybe a day or so. Rework, approvals, I mean, that takes a lot of time. And everything is like time to market. I mean, what is really working well today may not work tomorrow. So it's not like you go with the market. Maybe you just have to be available before like anyone else is there. So I mean, in that direction, I think AI can help. But as long as the creative part, the thought process, the approvals are concerned, I mean, we are always there. So if it is your campaign, you know your product, and you see the available iterations. If it is going with the if it is giving the right message, maybe you can choose from it. So I think it complements in that way.
Thank you for that. And we have one last question from I need to choose to answer to all. Oh, I'm sorry. You know that. There you go. Thank you, Lina. So we have Marco saying a very simple truth, which is every answer regarding user acquisition is complicated. I think that we all agree with that. And he asked us the following question. So do you think that for player versus player game, 1v1, inviting friends have bigger UA virality potential than actual UA campaigns? Game is instant play, one link. Players are invited directly into the PvP match and asked to register download the mobile version. He's actually speaking from a perspective of being a solo developer with a very limited budget. So I think that this fires the discussion on something that we haven't talked about today, which is organic efforts. And I do remember games in 2013, 14, 15, you could make a game and organically have a really big user base. I don't think that's happening right now, but Diana, you unmuted. I don't know if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, I actually think that a simple answer to that would be you should still do both. And the truth is, on the one hand, you can't, if you imagine a new game, for example, you probably need to get your first user somewhere, and that probably will be from user acquisition, because as you said, Santiago, nowadays you don't get any organics pretty much at all. But on the other hand, we've been doing some experiments, including with virality, and something surprising that we've seen is that there is still potential for that as well, and everyone should be experimenting with that as well. Obviously, if you manage to get K-factor above 1, meaning that each user brings an extra user and that user brings an extra user, you are golden. You just bring a single user and that everything explodes and you get an endless amount of users and endless growth. Obviously, realistically, practically speaking, it's impossible nowadays, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be trying to go for K-factor being, nowadays what the standard is like 0.2, maybe 0.3 being a decent one, meaning that for every 10 users you get around 2, 3 or 4 free. Mm-hmm. And that is still a very powerful way you can enhance your user acquisition, and especially from the perspective of solo developer, make things more possible for yourself. So unfortunately, the answer is probably not what Marco might have been going for, mentioning that they're a solo developer, but I think it should be both.
Well, thank you, Diana. Marco, we encourage you to keep trying. And I think that when you said every answer regarding UA is complicated, it is, and there is no absolute formula for every single case, right? You have to dig in, put the effort, and see what works for you particularly. So I think we should wrap up. Thank you, everyone out there that has been listening to us. Thank you, José, Pankaj, David, Diana. It was a pleasure meeting you guys. Lina, thank you for inviting me as a moderator. I had a lot of fun. It was a really lovely conversation. And I think that's it. So wish you guys a lovely weekend. We're almost there. And see you around, I guess.